Thank you for joining today's session on business process observability and decisions using predictive insights. When we talk about this kind of a phenomenon where the market currently is flooded with multiple tools, DRYiCE brings in a solution or platform which ideally has multiple verticals being touched, be it the oil and gas, life sciences, healthcare, energy utilities, financial, banking. So this is one product that we actually have been able to capitalize in terms of bringing real-time observability, which eventually is giving value to the businesses. Before I move on to that, definitely talk about my organization. So we are HCL division, and then we also have been developing, the softwares for past 10 years, where we actually have been partnered with multiple universities across the globe. We actually have multiple AI engineers working for us. We are trying to bring in the best of the solution across the globe. Our presence eventually is in multiple countries today, and it's been, I would say, a privilege to work for this company because we actually have been solving customer problems for almost like 22, years in terms of bringing IT operations into picture. But today, what we are going to talk is more of the portfolio solution that ideally comes from the great DRYiCE suite of products, where we actually cover AI ops for the IT level operations. Then we have service orchestration for all the service management areas. And then we also have some digital workplace solutions wherein we are trying to do some solution for front ending. But today's session, eventually, I'll be focusing on business process observability. Now, when I say business process observability, you may get a hint that the organization these days are bringing in solutions from left, right, and center, talking about how observability can change your life. Many APM vendors you may see, many analytical vendors, they all are using the term observability. But if you go to Gartner and their definition of observability is very simple, it actually has to give some business value. And when I say business, it actually has to define that what exactly business can understand from all the technology investments that they've made. Now, before even I go ahead, we are being recognized by bringing this particular industry solution in the market by majority of the analysts and the research firms talk about Forrester, Everest, Gartner, IDC. We have been working with everyone in order to evaluate that how exactly our solution would look like, how should this be related to the customers, and they've acknowledged that this particular product and the platform that ideally spreads across the I would say multiple industry verticals is working for customers to bring greater good and benefit, and definitely the business value that they're looking for from multiple solutions. Now, talking about this, just to give you a hint, when we talk about business process observability, we should always talk about that how can we help business to make better decisions. When I say better decisions, I'm talking about giving them the real-time insights of what is happening right now. I'm talking about something that has previously happened to make the systems learn and then give them the predictive insights that what can happen in the future. So if that is possible today, most of the tools that you come across are talking technology. There'll be some tool monitoring application, there'll be some tool who's monitoring your infrastructure, someone doing the processing of the core business function. But then nobody gives you the end-to-end visibility. When we talk about DRYiCE iControl, what we bring into action is digitizing the entire business process end-to-end. So you today come across multiple solutions that talk about giving you a hint of process visibility, but when they talk about process, one has to understand that are they talking about the transactions or are they talking about the process as a whole, what business actually needs. Now, said that, we also want to understand that if there are certain predictions that the business can utilize in order to avoid the impact, or maybe maybe minimize the impact onto the customer end customers, I would say. Now, this is one place where DRYiCE Control actually works very well, because we have 7 machine learning algorithms embedded into this platform that actually helps the business to predict the impact before even it actually occurs. Now, the one thing is, when you go and talk to business, none of the product today actually would talk the language that the business understands. And what I mean by that is that if you go to a life sciences customer, they would definitely want to understand, if you know the problem, what life sciences customers actually face, or if you already know how their business run. And similarly, it goes to oil and gas customers, or I would say energy utilities customers, or even the banking and financial customers, because they definitely want to understand that how verse are you with their industry standards, how verse are you with their industry problems that they're facing, or even the custom problems that their organization is into. So can a product bring that industry referenceable knowledge embedded into itself? So iControl today does that. We have almost like 300 plus processes, and I'll be talking in the later slides how we exactly did that. But this is something that we bring off the shelf as an iControl solution. IP for the customer, and nothing but the I would say more for the customer, because I don't want the customer to talk IT language or technology language. I don't want them to understand what is a host, what is a server, what is a network route. Rather, I just want them to concentrate onto what their business transaction actually is, how they talk in the real business language. So this product allows the customer to use the very same technology investment that they have made and articulate that back to their business leaders or process owners, or even the business operations team, that this is how exactly this technology data is working for me in the very same language, contextualized for any layman business guy to understand. Done that, just to give you a glimpse at how exactly we would work onto this, we actually concentrate on three core pillars: people, process, and technology. Majorly, when you invest into a technology, you're trying to solve a particular problem that may come from a certain systems or app set of applications that eventually are serving or contributing in the overall gamut of the processes. Rather, what we are trying to do over here is we are trying to match the relationship between the people who actually are trying to operate onto those business processes and the processes themselves, because there are multiple parent-child relationship that you develop in multiple departments, or I would say the circumstances or the guidelines or the audits or even the functioning of the process itself, that how would they be interrelated or knitted like a net. If that could be brought into picture, can be digitized, is something that you would definitely want to talk about to the customer. And then the technology eventually is promoting the rightfulness of every context that is being set. Now what I mean by this is, every time you monitor a system, it actually gives you a factual data of its health, but then how exactly is it possible that the customer still is feeling the pain? They are still feeling that I'm unable to satisfy my end customer. Here is something that we can bring on the table, covering all these three, I would say, core pillars of how the business has to perform, and then knitting them all together with the relationship where the interdependency can be visualized by the business leaders themselves, and keep a control that what should be done, how should it be done, and when it should be done, is something that we bring with iControl. Said that, this is how exactly iControl looks like. You may have customers who already have invested in multiple tools in their infrastructure space to do monitoring on the infrastructure side. When I say infrastructure side, I'm talking about server monitoring, I'm talking about application monitoring, network monitoring, or even you could just talk about the basic transaction that actually happens in the infrastructure space. These days, there's a new term coming in the market, which is cloud monitoring. Eventually, what you do is monitor the cloud, I would say your cloud presence altogether, be it on the virtual instances, be it on the storages that you actually have on the cloud. But then ideally what you're doing is you're actually trying to manage your infrastructure which onto which your applications are hosted. Now then there's a world of application monitoring altogether. You have multiple players who actually are playing in this particular world, talking about application performance, maybe real, synthetic, deep dive, where they even do the relationship between the databases of your web tiers. Now, said that, everyone doing the performances on their level, they these days have retermed their monitoring into observability. They just want to be relevant to the business, because business has been asking if there is a watermelon effect. When I say watermelon effect, they're talking about IT infrastructure team has their own SLAs signed with the business. Application team has their own SLAs signed with the business, and specifically, the business processes teams, they definitely have their own businesses SLAs, I would say, with the business. But how exactly is it possible that the customer still is feeling the pain? They are still feeling that I'm unable to satisfy my end customer. Who's responsible? How can I get the relationship done? Because everything provided to me as part of reports is green, but something is red inside. So it's a watermelon effect that we see most of the time. So what iControl brings in reality is combining, sitting on the top of all the investments that are currently made. So none of the investment that you already have made would be divested, I would say. We actually say, Mr. Customer, if you already have invested into any of the monitoring layer, then we would leverage the data that they have collected. We would then start doing the relevant tagging onto the business KPIs that eventually are getting monitored. Said that, we also have been working in terms of providing those particular specific business KPIs that relate to business impact. When I say business KPI, these are the ones that are responsible on each and every step of a business process. That how exactly would a business process execute? How would this be functional? And then any business process that was actually lying into a PowerPoint or a visual diagram, we actually try and bring that into reality and bring that to life, in fact, and then start tagging those particular business KPIs with that relevant data. Because Today, you can get solutions in the world of process mining, talking about we deep dive into your data, we understand what exactly is happening, do the auto discovery. But moment the primary key for them changes, the process changes. But this is not the real time scenario in any given point in time. This is what my next slide actually talks about, that when the impact ideally has to be analyzed, it ideally should be rolling up towards the overall business outcome. When I say that, the deep dive cannot get you the relationship done between the application infrastructures or even the core business values that ideally has to be delivered. Today, the solutions eventually are good in performing what they are meant to do. But when you talk about observability, which eventually Gartner always keeps on talking about, or Forrester talks about, that observability is not something as a technical feature of any monitoring solution. Rather, it ideally is a phenomenon of unknown and unknown. I would say unknown means you collect the data, you understand that what is the relationship between the business deliverables, and then you try and tag in the relevant part of it rather than tagging each and every bit of data that you have collected. So herein, when you actually start collecting any infrastructure monitoring data or application monitoring data, you actually see the rollout of the impact that is happening. But does any siloed infrastructure monitoring solution or application monitoring solution would be able to give you that rollout, I would say, impact analysis? This is where iControl comes in, where we say that we sit on the top of all the impact data that has been collected by these different infrastructure monitoring or application monitoring solutions. We just try and tag that back to the business process KPIs or business service KPIs, so that the impact rollover directly happens onto the business outcome. And then the control and the transparency for both the IT team as well as the business operation team becomes much more streamlined, and I would say much more strengthening in terms of communicating very well that who's responsible, when is responsible, when can this be resolved, all of this being done at a fraction of seconds. And said that, this is very important that we understand that what exactly a business process would look like for any given customer. Because if you talk about the infrastructure teams, their process is ideally to deliver IT services. If you talk about the application operations team, they actually want to do operations running on any application cluster or set of applications that ideally are trying to contribute into overall performance of a business. And similarly, if you talk about various process mining tools these days, they actually are trying to say, yes, we do process, I would say, observability or bringing in the process maps. But then when you start talking in detail and you ask questions to them, okay, fine. When you say process, what exactly the process means? So when you go to these APM solutions or monitoring solutions, what they do is they try to do trace and track. When I say trace and track, there's a particular transaction that they actually start tracking with the primary key. Now, in this particular slide, you would see that going from bottom to top, there is a business journey one in red that I actually have showcased, where you have processing stage one, processing stage two. Now, what happens is if you actually put any APM tool, or I would say infrastructure tool, or even the process mining tool, the moment they get a primary key, they would actually be able to trace the trajectory of how exactly the transaction happened. And the moment the transaction, the primary key turns out to be doing all the processing and has an outcome, the process ends there. But when you actually see for a given process, there'll be multiple business journeys following in, and there will be multiple human touch points coming in. But how exactly can we actually map all of this? Because if the process discovery eventually is modeling basis the assumptions taken on how the process would happen, it would not be accurate. So what we do is we actually ask Mr. Customer, what's your business process? What's your definition of business process? Wherein you have multiple steps, L1, L2s of process modeling concept, where they actually understand that this is how my process should work. So, and then there's a difference between a workflow and a business process always, because most of the times what we get is a workflow mapping rather than a business process mapping. So iControl does it differently. We actually do go to the customer, we understand the tribal knowledge that they have been gaining or any repository that they have been maintaining of, I would say, dead processes into their PowerPoints or visuals. We bring that to life by digitizing on our digital canvas, where this iControl has an IP in terms of providing a flow builder, how exactly step by step a process may look like. Within that process, then we start understanding that where exactly are those touch points onto which the transaction happens, where there's no relationship that could be made out of auto discovery modes from these solutions from APM world or infrastructure world or even the process mining world. Said that, I also try and find that how exactly can we map in all these relationships for a better outcome. Now end of the day, the business is running onto a set of processes to deliver a specific outcome. This is where iControl comes in and says, okay, fine, we'll map each and every business KPI which is critical for the business on every step of a business process, mapped directly to your business outcome, where all these business journeys would just become a contributor. So anything that is being monitored today by these APM solutions, monitoring solutions, infrastructure side, or even the core processing monitoring, native monitoring from the processing engines on the business end, we just collate all of them relevantly, that where exactly on which business KPI is this relevant, and then map that part so that the business gets a real-time view. We get to map the historical performance of the overall business, and then we also try and predict that what or which step eventually, or which business KPI is going to impact the overall performance of a business process. Not only that, a customer actually gets end-to-end view, even if there is no relationship between different business journeys. Because what you do is you start from top, you go down to the business KPIs, then further tag in the business, the data streams, and then start talking about the relevant information that is, I would say, important for the business customer. Said that, this is an example how exactly it happens in the business process that I was trying to explain, where we had multiple business journeys, every business journey being individually monitored by APM solutions or your infrastructure monitoring solutions, mapped, aggregated towards the greater business outcome. And how exactly would that reflect back in your eye control is something that we actually are trying to project here. So on the right hand side, what you see is the real screenshot that we had taken for one of the payments process that we tried to monitor. Now, you could just see that we started from routing the payment. We actually went to complete the payment, which actually had multiple steps involved into it. There were regulatory checks, there are like repair payments, you could talk about conversion rates. All of this is something that business understands, the business leader understands, or even the process owner understands. Talk to them about, oh, you know what, transaction ID, this and this just got faulty just because of the host didn't coming in, and the host ID is separate. You confuse the business leader, you confuse the business operator. You actually are trying to make it much more difficult for him to communicate back to his customer that what exactly the issue is, when would this be resolved, and how exactly can we bring more, I would say, streamlining into the overall process execution. So what we try to do is make it simplified. We articulate each and every business process step that they understand the way it has to be, and then we map in. So for an example, you have on the left corner of this yellow border, you see that there are total 131 as a number displayed. These are 131 business KPIs on this one process. Now imagine how critical would it be for a business to understand that, on what dependencies ideally his business process actually runs. So this is where you digitize the entire business process step by step in the articulated language that a business leader, process owner, or operations team may understand, then map each and every step with those relevant business KPIs that eventually are responsible for performances. And then in real time, you get the observability that, is it amber? Amber means something is about to go wrong. Is it green? Everything is okay. Or is it going red, where something that has surpassed the threshold and we need to take an action? Wherein iControl brings all of this in the picture, we also try and bring in those sense of responsibilities where you could trigger or notify a stakeholder that this is something going wrong. This is already gone wrong. Let's start working on it. And then making the curious operators also giving a flexibility to drill down, deep dive, how exactly would it look like. Now this is one view of multiple screenshots that iControl brings on the table. When I say brings on the table, all of these standard views are available at the disposal of the customer, where he actually can configure from multiple set of processes. On the very left corner of the slide, you could see the multiple set of processes already being listed, where he actually can see that which of my process currently is not performing well, which is being highlighted to be warned in terms of something going wrong, which are the ones which actually would be good. Now, from there, you can drill down on very specific processes. On for every process, on every step where we are going wrong, you actually drill down further onto each and every target. And then when I say target, target is the classification of that business KPI, that whether it is numerically countable, whether it is availability. So all of this drill down is available in real time, and then further the listing of each and every target, that how exactly is this contributing, definition of that particular target, what it means for the business, right? So all of this detail in real time available. Said that, then we also have further drill downs and or specific widgets in terms of looking at the overall estate of how exactly and the nitty-gritties be observed. So if I want to have an observation, where did my threshold breach, at what time, and how many of my thresholds are green, how many of are red. So all these specific widgets available, drill down for the curious, I would say, operators, customers, where they actually want to get these reports published to the customers that how exactly the performance is today. Now, said that, we also are working on bringing in the industry intelligence, which is fairly important. Today, you may have multiple solutions in the market, which talk about that. Today, we provide system intelligence. When I say system intelligence, I'm talking about using AI. Now AI is a big term that you actually come across, but you may also have to believe that practically applied AI is something that people are after. That if I actually have to use AI, what would it do for me? How can I benefit from it? So iControl actually brings that feature where we use 7 machine learning algorithms, and we have made it so flexible for the application admin to choose that which algorithm should I be deploying in order to train my data, so that it gives me an accurate prediction. So I lead the control of the machine learning training of the model again lies with the particular person who's actually operating onto this particular platform. Now, said that, it's just about machine learning by itself, by providing some algorithms where they actually train the model. It's a big thing. Of course, I'm making it a little simple, but then how would more value come in? Can I make it more relevant for any business customer? How can the customer gain knowledge from this product where he can refer to something known as industry standards? So what we did, other than just bringing in the machine learning intelligence into this particular product, we started working on getting some industry intelligence as well. When I say industry intelligence, we started creating domain packs. When I say domain packs, eventually they are collection of referenceable business processes that the customers may opt in order to expedite the adoption. So for an example, if a customer wants to monitor their end-to-end payments process in their financial business department, can they refer to some process already written? How is the industry standard process looks like? Is there something that I can customize? So we bring that flexibility where on a click of a button, the entire process would get displayed onto a flow builder on the digital canvas that I was talking about. And then you have a flexibility to just make some custom changes that are required in order to make it a right fit for your organization. And just to give you an example, one of our customer recently was just bringing this I would say process from our domain pack, the workshop to onboard the process, which eventually would have been consulting, understanding business KPIs and everything, from 2 hours was reduced to just 15 minutes. So just imagine, within 15 minutes they were able to onboard the entire process. The only thing that was left was data onboarding, how exactly the relevant data has to be tagged onto each and every business KPI that they actually wanted to monitor. So in a span of 15 minutes, he was able to visualize, oh, this is how my process looks like. This is where exactly the participation of different contributors from infrastructure layer, application layer, or even the business layer would come in. So this is how the value actually is being brought in by this particular product. Today you can buy any number of licenses for your application estate, for your infrastructure estate, but how exactly would this be meaningful for the business? How exactly can business reap out much more benefits? Because they have to handle customer perception, they actually have to handle the I would say fine tune running of their end-to-end business processes. Think of an e-commerce customer, right? So they actually, from the right point of getting a request to the trigger that they actually have to do on the backend systems, understand the warehouse availability or of the stocks, and then doing the relative check and the payments. There's too much that they actually have to do in terms of interaction, and then pointing out the right delivery, right, till the moment the delivery actually happens. So there are many touch points that they actually have or they don't have control on. And specifically, if the stock is not available, they actually have to go and reorder that. So all of this being done, if you map out the process, the customer actually wants to see when exactly is my order reaching me. But the business at the back end, they want to see, am I providing customer with an experience where I can retain him for my next order that he wants to do. So this is where we actually become more relevant, where we say, Mr. Customer, because you have been doing set of operational processes in your business, and you have been investing in multiple technology levers, let us deploy iControl, which ideally would give you a control on end-to-end business process, will give you a deep dive visibility vertically down, that who's responsible, who's contributing, and where exactly should you reach out, and all of this done automatically, that to resolve any issue that ideally may occur or has already occurred into your environment. Now, said that, the slide this I'm showcasing right now, it talks about that today DRYiCE iControl has 231 processes already embedded in our latest release 1.8 that we had done. And then we have 369 business KPIs. Now, 369 business KPI means that you could reuse the monitoring aspects of each and every business process step. Done that, we also are working currently on other departments where we actually, I would say, industry verticals, where we still, with our 2.0 release, which is scheduled for September month, we'll be bringing three more industry verticals. I'm sorry for my throat. So covering 8 different industry verticals actually gives iControl I would say, a more of a vertical approach than being just a horizontal solution applicable for, I would say, any of the industry vertical. Today, we actually bring in this excellence in understanding what financial services business problems are, what life sciences business problems are, what retail business problems are, and all these business processes eventually would help us bringing in that excellence that the customer actually needs. Now, said that, what are the key features that we actually bring in? So today, latestly, we actually got certified by Splunk. We ID happen to be an iControl Splunk app as well, and then we would be available on Splunk cloud, where we actually can host it and run iControl over it. Now, said that, we eventually focus on key features like designing your flow, putting in the standard business KPIs, and then mind it that we also have those pre-written industry standard processes that on a click of a button you could refer. Now, once that these processes actually get onboarded, the customers have flexibility to custom them as per their requirement. Now, once all these mappings are done, the scheduling is done for the business, that when exactly has to be run, because most of the time this happens that we are working on certain business hours, and we would just want to monitor our business process performance onto those particular specific business hour schedules. So we bring in those calendar systems where even you could map out your business holiday calendars, even the availability of your business staff, where you actually go and get the relevant information, and then all of this being merged to give you end-to-end view that when exactly was my business running really successfully. Done that, we are running flow performances, we are doing operational reporting. When I say operational reporting, most of the times it is being confused that the customers eventually are trying to do a pivot onto an Excel. No, they need a specific standardized way of reporting. When I say standard specific way of reporting, I'm just talking about how can they simplify the availability, right? This is where iControl actually comes in, providing you all those measures, controls, impact drill downs, dashboarding features, where you actually can come and say that, Mr. Customer, this is how exactly, not just from the horizontal end-to-end view, but from the vertical curiosity, from the drill downs of every business KPI, that what transaction or even at the log level things are being performed. So the business layer can actually look into the horizontal reporting, and the operation staff, ideally the technical people who ideally you would want to coordinate with, if you see something going red, can actually get a log level information that where exactly things have gone wrong, because we aggregate everything from existing monitoring solutions who already have collected your data. Now, done that, we run predictive analytics onto it. We run the warning systems, wherein exactly if things are going to go wrong, we actually bring that particular I would say notification to these respective stakeholders. And then we have customizable home screens as well. So done that, we also do the dependency into these dashboards, and we have customizable framework. So we also do dependencies, so they could be a parent-child relationship in the overall business processes. So we try and bring those particular I would say relationship between multiple processes, so one process can feed into other. This is something that we also map in, which ideally you would not find in the linear process visibility solution. So let's say any process mining solution for that case. It's easy to adopt, trust me. You just start discovering the process, talking to the relevant business stakeholders, process owners, or I would say IT services, so that you can understand the relationship between what data is relevant on what business step or business KPI. Then you start designing the metrics onto which you would start measuring the entire overall business process. Done that, you start looking into a particular data set. So as I said previously, that we don't deep dive into the data lake. Rather, we just go and select the relevant data stack that ideally would be relevant for a business KPI. So it makes it much more easier for you to know which is the contributor, or who is the contributor in overall business process chain. Once that is done, then we start doing the standardization of what visuals that would be required. The customers can themselves configure. On a click of a button, things actually starts getting configured, and then in the real time, you start monitoring, measuring all of these particular business process layers. And then once this is there, you start predicting and taking rightful decisions that are backed by your data. Now, I have a quick case study where we actually worked for a Fortune 500 financial services firm. ID, 45 billion worth of their revenue, and their presence across 50 countries, and more than 100,000 employees in their environment. Now, they definitely were lacking in terms of how exactly the relationship between IT and business actually has to happen. They were lacking how exactly the visuals for end-to-end visibility could be done. So what we did, we actually provided iControl to them, where we started doing the same phenomenon. We started talking to them. We mapped out the dead processes on their visuals and brought them to life through our digital canvas. We started putting in those specific critical business KPI that were relevant for this customer. Once that was being done, then we started measuring that how exactly would this be impacted. We tagged in the rightful data, and once that data was there, the benefits that we were able to bring in was 60% reduction in their service level outages. And it's a phenomenal change that we actually have been able to bring in. And there were 20% decrease in escalations, because most of the time this happens that business is not getting a service. They actually try and escalate to the IT leaders. Now, IT leaders and the business leaders now were in sync, because they were able to see that who's working, what is not working. I won't say who, but what is not working, and they were able to just put in a stop there and then. And also, it's a more of a transparency that you bring between the business and IT. So yeah, the whole idea is to simplify the world, make business controlling their technology estate with the critical business outcomes that they ideally think they should be delivering to their end customers, and that all being backed by their business KPIs, step by step approach in terms of understanding the process and the contributors within that process, and then also mapping out the right relevant data from the technology investments that they already have made. Rather than asking them to just transform entirely, we just sit on the top and provide you the value. So this is it from my side. Thank you. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.